This is a special episode on request talking about strobes or flashes in the studio. Hey everyone, Stephan here. I hope you're doing well. As you can see, I'm not alone today. We are doing this together. It's the most patient model on the planet. I use her quite a bit. She doesn't say much, but that's great for practicing. Today is a special episode on request. Someone sent me a message and said, hey, I'm still confused, not quite sure. Should I use studio strobes? It all seems so complicated. Truth of the matter is, it's super easy. So today will be a very short episode, I would assume, because it is so simple. I'll show you how to do it, how to set it up, how to trigger it, and then you're good to go. So if you're just shooting out in the sunlight and you're too afraid of strobes, this might be for you because it is so simple. So what I've done just to test it out, I've set up two completely different modifiers. On the right, we have a 1.2 meter octabank on a 1200 watt-second strobe, and on the other side I use the same strobe but with a magnum reflector, much smaller, much more punchy. So we have a soft light on one side and we have a much stronger, edgier light on the other side, and then we're going back and forth. And for the background, I'm using two additional strobes, also 1200 watt-seconds, with pretty large soft boxes to get that even spread on the back wall. So where to start? Well, if you're out in the sunlight, you deal with whatever you're given. So if you shoot in the shade or if you shoot in open sunlight, you have to adjust your settings accordingly to get the decent exposure. In the studio, however, you're in complete control. So before you even touch a strobe or dial in any settings, you have to think of what you want in terms of camera settings. So in this case, I decided I want to shoot at ISO 64, no noise, and I want to shoot at f8 to get, a decent amount of sharpness. I shoot with a 200mm lens today, so that will give us a good amount of depth of field around the face. Now that we have set that, we are going to adjust our strobes to give us exactly those readings. So, where to start? The old man is putting on the glasses because otherwise I cannot read my light meter anymore. I'm getting old. So I have a remote trigger here, but of course you can also run a cable, and I have a Sekonic light meter. This is the way I work. I like to measure everything so that I know that I'm spot on. If you don't have a light meter, don't worry. You just set the settings in your camera that you want. You switch your strobe on, you take a test photo. If you like it, you're good to go. If you don't, if it's too dark, well, turn the strobe up. If it's too bright, turn it down. Do this 2 or 3 times and you're pretty much there. If you use several lights, of course, I find it much easier to measure, and then I am sure every single time I'm getting the correct exposure. So let's start with a 1.2 meter octabank. The last setting it was set to is 1/128th power. Let's just measure what we're getting. And that tells me that at 64 ISO, it wants f1.4, but we want f8. So 128, 64 is double, 32 is another double, 16 is another double. So let's set it to 1/16th power and let's see what we're getting. f4, not enough. So 1/16th, double that. So we are going to 1/8, and we know from f4, one full f-stop is 5.6. So let's go to 1/4 power, and let's see what we're getting. f8.0. So let's set our magnum reflector to exactly the same power as our big softbox, 1/4. What do you think we're getting? I would guess a lot more. It wants f25. That's how huge the difference is between a large softbox and something like a magnum reflector. Why would you use such a thing? Well, A, you can throw light over fast distances or vast distances, I think in English, but also you get a much harder, much edgier light. So one f/25, not what we want. So let's dial this baby down, way down. So 8th power, we're getting f/18. 16th power, we're getting f/11. Getting there. So one more stop. So we halve it, 1/16 down to 132 and f/80. So we have this one at quarter power and this one at 1/32nd power. Having both set, we're measuring the background. So what would you set the background to be perfect white? I usually just go one stop over. So these ones are measured at f/8. From f/8, I want to go up to f/11. If I go higher than that, of course, the background will be really white, but it starts to creep in. It starts to reflect so much light back into the camera that we will get a very washed out light. So I'll go now and measure the background and change the lights until I get f/11. So it was that simple. I changed the settings several times, took a reading until I got f/11. So the back lights are both on quarter power. That's it. So let's take a few photos at those settings. The first setting that we had, the 1/28th power, and then 1/64th power, 1/16th power, 1/4th power. And there you go, f/8, exactly what we want. And if we compare this to the Magnum reflector, well, it's a much harder light. I guess for portraits, generally, a big light source like the Octabank is much more flattering, but the Magnum reflector has much more punch. If you want something more edgy, more fashiony, you get that punch out even over a distance. That's really it. There's nothing more to it. All you have to do is you have to decide what camera settings you want to use, and then you adjust the strobes accordingly, up or down. Switch it on, take a photo or measure it, dial it up or down until you're happy and you're good to go. The rest is all about angles, of course, what kind of modifiers that you use. Do you backlight something, if you use the white background or not? But that has nothing to do with technical anymore. Now it's a question of styling. So don't be afraid of strobes. That's my point today. I know it's so simple, and is it even worth creating a video? Well, if you're not sure about using strobes, big or small, it's all the same. It's just light. So go out and do it. Have fun. I hope you enjoyed this episode, as simple as it was. Next week, we're talking about using LED lights together with strobes, which becomes a little bit more complex. So I hope you look forward to that. Until then, stay safe, create something, and I'll see you then.